I am here at a table with somebody I've been admiring for a year. It was about a year ago. Will Guidara, restaurateur, author, speaker, maybe the new Simon Sinek, I said. Everyone's chasing on hospitality, and you're going to jump into a whole new mission, which you've been on the last year.
Yes. I was in a meeting with Danny Meyer, who my longtime mentor, who we'll talk about more today, who I believe is one of the great hospitality minds in America, in the world of our time. He was my boss, and I was sitting down with him because I was questioning my next move, and I had a sense of where I wanted to go and what I wanted to do, and it included leaving him. And this was a moment where, I mean, most bosses, I was pretty good then, like he wanted me to stay, and that's normally when someone would transition into trying to convince you to not leave. And instead, we talked for a while, and then at the end, he's like, hey, think about it. And then he poked me in the stomach and said, but ultimately just listen to your gut. And that's something I've always tried to carry with me. I think so often we end up at these crossroads, and we can appropriately start to analyze, what does right look like?
Right.
It's a comment my dad has given to me many, many times. Ask yourself what right looks like and do that. But sometimes if we're not careful, we can analyze things to the point that we're just overwhelmed, almost paralysis through analysis. And in those moments, we need to stop thinking with our brains and start listening to our gut.
I think it's too surrounding, and one of the reasons I'm at this table, one of the first conversations with you is I think it's for me surrounding myself around people that have stories and have made moves that inspire you to say, why not? They did.
Yeah.
And I think you're doing that for a lot of people right now.
I appreciate that. And what you just said actually kind of triggered perhaps the even more meaningful community. If you've surrounded yourself with the right group of people, if you've been intentional in your pursuit of the important relationships, when you're surrounded by a group of people that are smart and talented and who you trust, and they trust you, and you love them and they love you, I mean, there's not really anything that's that risky, because you have an entire community around you who will catch you if you fall or do everything they can to help you succeed.
All right, so we're sitting at a table. I'm going to just share a little bit here. I'll let you eat, and I'm just going to kind of put a table's one of the most powerful, I believe, forces, equalizers, influencers. Tell me a little bit about the meaning of a table through your lens.
So we're at one of my favorite tables in New York. And I love the whole spirit of this thing you're doing, because I similarly believe that this thing, the table, is both literally and metaphorically one of the most important things that we have. Like all of us have
life.
In life. I believe there's a sanctity to the table. Just the idea that this is one of the few places left where people can sit down and stop checking their phones, where people are actually inclined to focus on the food in front of them and the people that they're lucky enough to share that food with. It's one of the reasons why I love restaurants. I think a great restaurant, one that is intentional and creative in creating the conditions for connection, can be a place there where people are brought closer together. I believe a great restaurant, if you and I sit down to eat there, we will be closer to one another at the end of the meal than we were going into it.
And I would say, I would even expand it to say, and I know you're going into the business world and the corporate America world, you know, in my office behind my desk, I have a lot of the more important critical tables I've ever sat at with picture selfies of people, but the leadership tables, you know, it's a symbol more of, are we in a circular table or a square table? Are we together looking in on our mission or not? And then I still remember that country table in upstate New York and that farm family. I was in the back to the right. My shaping of my dad was at that dinner table at night. So I think, you know, it broadens beyond a restaurant even, I think, in terms of.
And I think like one of the things that leaders can do in their companies is actually take the lessons from the round tables and apply them to the square tables.
Wow.
I believe that leadership has changed, right? Especially in this post-pandemic world where people are working remotely or these hybrid workplaces, the idea that the people you work with will genuinely connect with one another organically is no longer accurate, right? There was a long time when you could rely on the fact that your team would feel a sense of connection and community to and with one another, just by virtue of the conversations that happen around the proverbial water tower or after work at happy hour, that no longer happens organically in most places. It now requires the leader to be intentional in bringing their people together. It requires the leader being a great host of people. And so, yeah, I do think all tables have the capacity to be transformational, but that doesn't happen in the absence of intention.
You say in your book, and this hit me and my wife and I a lot when we heard you say this, the unexpected is more valuable than the expensive. When someone gives us time, when someone gives us energy, the feeling of that gift is overwhelming. Not just to the person receiving it, but also to the person giving it. Go there. That's the heart of what this is all about, right? I mean, until someone gets that conversion and feels it and sees it, companies won't change if the person themselves that's leading that company doesn't change. Is that right? And then I want to cross over into where you've been, corporate America and all this. But tell me, I'm trying to get to the essence. Is that the essence of Unreasonable Hospitality?
I mean, that's the essence of why it sticks. I think if I'm like defining unreasonable hospitality, you look across all disciplines. The people that are the most successful are those that are completely irrationally unreasonable in pursuit of their product.
Yeah.
The ones that are relentless and willing to do whatever it takes to make that product its most fully realized self. And for me, unreasonable hospitality is just me begging the world to start being just as unreasonable in pursuit of how they're making people feel, those that they serve and all the people that they work with in order to serve those people. Listen, there's times where something just makes more sense than ever before. And I think we're in one of those moments around hospitality for a bunch of different reasons.
Yeah.
I think what we were all universally reminded of is our just innate human need to feel genuinely connected to other people. Yeah. And hospitality is the secret ingredient in connection. But when you talk about how to deal with retention and recruiting, so many leaders are doing the same two things right now. They're paying their team more or giving them more balance between work and life, both of which are important and also wholly insufficient, because that's like treating the symptoms and not the underlying condition. The key is to give people a renewed sense of purpose in their work. And in creating a culture of hospitality, you're giving your team the gift of being able to give other people gifts, which is one of the most fulfilling and purpose-giving things we can possibly do.
Your intentionality on gifting. Give me a 2-minute answer on gifting.
I just think gifting is the most beautiful opportunity, not just to show someone that you spent a lot of money on them, but to show them that you care enough about them to get to know them well enough to give them a gift that is only right for them. And so the greatest gifts I've given and the greatest gifts I've received are ones that if I gave them to you instead of the person I gave them to, you'd be like, what is this?
Wow.
And here's the thing, for people who say, okay, that's great, you spend a lot of time on that, I don't have that time. Everyone has time in the day to do something, to do the things they choose to do. And we all need to be looking for things to schedule into our days that don't deplete us and rather energize us. I guarantee you, 20 minutes a day being creative about how to make other people happy will always energize you and make you more effective for all the other things that are cluttering your calendar.
Part of Shared Table is converging leadership, intersecting with animals.
Yes.
Fats and protein. So I'm going to go on the protein side. Meat, milk, cheese, eggs. Center of the plate, some people would say.
Yeah.
The role of protein. I'm just get some of your perspective on this.
There's all these different trends around plant-based this and that and the other thing, but I still think, the protein, the center of the plate, that is the culmination of most meals. I think when you talk about the emotional significance of protein, like so many of the most important traditions, whether you're at a Korean restaurant getting like a bossam or the roasted turkey around Thanksgiving, or my mom's bolognese, whatever it is. Like, there are these things that represent so much more than just what you're putting in your body, but all the memories and emotional attachments you have to the thing that you're being served.
Maybe I'll segue to the close here. I'm a big believer in, as I said, kind of a no regrets life. And I believe there's 3 important days: the day you find your mission and calling, the day you do something about it, maybe it's that second mountain even, and then the day that, hey, when it's getting over, you look back and there's no regrets.
Yes.
And so, a quote I think about, I saw this the other day and I thought of you actually, is, if you think the price of winning is too high, wait till you get the bill for regret.
Oh.
It's generational.
Wow. When I first bought my company, I was spending time in Seattle, and I was with the elder Canlis of Canlis Restaurant. And he's like, I just want to give you some advice based on my own experience. So many people say the secret to happiness is like separating work from life as much as possible. He's like, I found the opposite to be true for me. I like to let life and work bleed into one another, because otherwise I found myself always consumed with guilt when I was pursuing one that I wasn't pursuing the other. And I've tried to channel that into my own approach in different ways. I obviously want to accomplish a bunch of stuff. I want the things that I do and the work I put out into the world to leave it a marginally better place than when I started. I want to create best of class places and inspire people to think a little bit differently. But obviously the most important thing is I want to be a great dad. I want to raise great kids. And professionally, my hope is that what is required to be a great dad for them is the same things that I accomplish at work. So that it's not like I'm doing 2 different things, but through one set of non-negotiables, through one set of core values, I'm doing the 2 things simultaneously.
Wow. Powerful. I think don't underestimate too your shadow. They always say the power of a leader's shadow. I think what I've seen in the last year, you're taking servant leadership to a 4.0 kind of level. You're taking companies that need engagement. We need what you have to offer. I think hospitality in an unreasonable way will be looked at, I think, in a more common nature in 10 years. That'll be more central to the company. It'll be on more mission statements, on more walls. It'll be, I really do. So I think this is a little bit of what Drucker did for, leadership and Jim Collins. I think there's an opportunity of what you're doing from hospitality in. So
thank you for saying that.
Thank you for making me a better leader, a dad, a husband, and inspiring me.
Well, it's a 2-way street.
Thank you. Let's have some pizza.
Thank you.
Thanks.